Wait, what? Wait, how many? What's the percentage?
Anywhere from 20 to 50% of children living in urban areas in middle school and high school are identifying as LGBTQIA++.
Okay, that's not real. Hey everybody, I caught myself another one. This one I'm so excited to. I say that with every interview, but today I super am excited about this person I have. But before we get started again, I want to thank everybody for joining us and joining the channel and really helping me raise the trajectory of the channel. And I think people are really starting to wake up to what we're trying to bring to the world and a different opinion and a different voice around what's happening in this space. So that being said, I have Gabrielle. Is it Gabriella or Gabrielle?
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle.
But you can call me Gabs.
Gabs, because I'm special. So I have Gabs, who's amazing, and wait till you hear this. So first, so I'd love for you to just introduce yourself, Gabs, and then we'll move on from there.
My name is Gabrielle Clark, and I filed the first federal lawsuit against woke indoctrination in America. And while I was fighting for my son against CRT, my daughter was socially transitioned into believing that she was a boy through the SEL program. And then I had to stop my activism for my son and create a program that is now being used successfully throughout the world to help my daughter successfully desist, called Affirming Reality.
Wow, that's a lot in like 2 seconds. Seriously, I'm just like, what? First your son. So wait, what is SEL?
Social and emotional learning.
Social. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Social and emotional learning originally started out as a program to help children to assimilate in the classroom setting with their behavior problems. It initially was supposed to be a good thing to help children be able to be successful in school without having to leave the classroom when they were misbehaving. It was supposed to stop behavioral problems from being suspended or sent to ISS, that sort of thing, to catch it early so that they could learn how to process their feelings and remain in the classroom. It was originally supposed to be just for like special ed students, Asperger's kids or other children who had severe behavioral problems, so that they were allowed to be in class with all of the other children. And somewhere along the way, they decided to use it throughout the school for everyone. And then they further implemented the program to include sexual education and ultimately inclusivity as we see it now.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. So what do you what do you think about it as just where it started for the actual like original part of it? Do you think that it was helpful?
Well, oddly enough, one of my sons does have Asperger's. And when that was offered to us, we turned it down. And this was some, I don't know, 15, 17 years ago. Um, I felt like the program it was going to single him out and put
Okay.
him in an environment where he could not learn social cues from his peers. And I thought that that was more important than learning it from a teacher. I thought that him being completely immersed in his classroom, and then we handle situations as they arise. I thought that was a better model.
Yeah.
That young man is now an adult and completely and totally high functioning on his own, got accepted into college, great SAT scores, all of those things. He has a career that he's had for several years. So
Wow.
I think that social and emotional learning at its core was something that started out with good intentions,
Mhm.
but I think it was always
Mm.
the wrong way to go.
Right. I mean, that makes complete total sense, right? So it's how I feel about a lot of things that are happening today. I think when you just this idea into this whole space without especially kids, just letting them find their things, or this is the, you know what I mean? Like I think a lot of what we're about to talk about, specifically around the trans kids stuff, and you have a, is it a daughter? You have your daughter got sucked into the trans sort of
Yes,
ideology.
yes,
How
my
old
daughter.
is she?
She's in high school now, but at the time she was in the seventh grade.
7th, wait, 7th grade is 12 or
Yes, around that. Yes, 12 and 13.
holy
Yes.
moly, 12
But
years old.
that is what I am seeing with a lot of children. As a matter of fact, right now, as of right now, in urban areas, anywhere from 20 to 50% of children in middle school and high school are identifying as LGBTQIA plus plus.
Wait, what?
So
Wait, what? Wait, how many, what's the percentage?
anywhere from 20 to 50% of children living in urban areas in middle school and high school are identifying as LGBTQIA plus plus.
Okay, that's not real. And
Yes.
I'm a trans
Oh,
person.
the statistic is real, but it's unreal
But you
that
know what I
that's
mean? Like it's not, yeah, yeah,
they're
the statistic is
they're not
real.
real.
But what I mean is the actual thing is not real. There is
No,
no way. There is no way. Mm-mm.
no,
And you know, they always say this thing where they're like, well, it's buck, it's because it's now accessible. Nope, sorry. It was, how did I
no.
do it 30 years ago then if it wasn't
Right.
accessible? So
I am bi, and I never had to have any parent or teacher or anything like that tell me that that's what I am. I didn't need
wow.
anyone to usher me into
That's right.
that awareness.
That's right.
So, and
That's
I
right.
do have a gay son, and I practically had to drag him out of the closet because he was nervous. He was very
Sure.
nervous about it. But when
It's
he was
hard.
in high school, I was like, it's okay. I
Yeah.
think that a lot of people make that assertion because when we were younger in the 90s,
Mhm,
it was harder and there
mhm,
was an issue. But we're attributing something that we experienced in our youth to something that the children are experiencing now, and it's not equivocal.
mm-mm. Not, it is, it's just mind blowing. So,
Yes.
can we talk a little bit about your daughter and that situation? So at 12, what happens? She comes home and says something to you, or what? How did that happen?
Well, one of her friends, it was during the pandemic, all of the children, there was something different
Yeah.
about all of the children. We were, I mean, in at the time we were living in Las Vegas, and the superintendent of the public schools went on television and said he's getting calls every night because there's an automatic call to him put into him whenever one of the laptops, the one of the Chromebooks is used to search for something for self-harm. And there were, I think at that time, the youngest a suicide had been 8 years old. So there were lots of children that were experiencing a kind of nihilism and a deep depression because of what was happening through the lockdowns. But all of the parents were just on high alert. We were hyper vigilant about our children because we didn't want anything to put them in that position.
Mhm,
And one of my daughter's friends, very good friend, ended up in the hospital on a 72-hour psych hold for self harm.
mhm,
When that happened, all of the parents, we all, just we were deeply concerned. So the school supplied a counselor. And we all thought that that was good. We thought that that was going to help the children process what was happening to their friend. unbeknownst to us, there was more to it than that.
Mm,
And I started to notice a difference in my daughter when she started talking about a friend who was trans. I
mm,
met the parents, um and there were some inappropriate reading materials that I
mm,
discovered, that sort of thing. My daughter was exhibiting some out of character behaviors.
mm.
She had always been a sweet person and a nice person, and she was becoming catty and snarky and sarcastic. Those those kinds of things we just kind of chalked up to teenager,
Of
teen
course.
angst. That's where we're at. Teenage girl, mean girl stuff, right?
Mhm,
That's
mhm,
what we were thinking.
mhm,
But then I visited a relative for a month over the summer,
mhm.
and my daughter had no internet access because it was pretty exclusive. Like it was out in the woods. And I noticed my daughter going back to the way she had been
Hmm.
before all of this. And I was like, there's something wrong here.
Wow.
When we finally went back home and she was able to get back on her social media, her
Yeah,
TikToks, and all of
yeah.
that stuff, that was when I saw, the TikToks were getting weirder. Everything was it wasn't makeup anymore. It was satanic, like just
Wow.
a weird demonic, stuff.
Wow.
And her friends were becoming more and more important to an unhealthy level.
Mhm, mhm,
But that still didn't put her back where she was. It
mm.
wasn't until she started back to school for that school year that other things started happening more frequently. The emotional outbursts and, just being cruel to us, distancing herself from our family, and ultimately self harm, cutting
Oh,
and that sort of thing. So, though that told me it's not just social media, it's not just peer pressure, it's her school. It's her school.
oh my God.
And when I finally decided to poke around a little bit. And mind you, I didn't think this was going to happen to one of my kids because I was already fighting CRT, and the
Uh,
school knew that. I had already filed a lawsuit and the school knew that. So I'm thinking, the school is not going to take a chance at messing with a mother like me. Well, I was
I love
wrong.
you.
They don't care.
You're mama bear. You're mama bear. Right on.
Yeah, but I was wrong. They didn't care about that. They still and so when I heard an administrator call my daughter by a boy's name, that was when I realized that this is something wholly different from what I had been fighting before. And
Wow.
I had to devise a plan to rescue my daughter.
Oh
Um,
my God.
very similar to I did something very similar to what someone would do if they were trying to leave an abusive relationship. Um,
Wow.
I had to behave like nothing was happening in front of people at the school and stuff like that, because you know, I had heard of this kind of thing resulting in a child being taken out of the home because the school activated the CPS and deemed the parents unsafe.
Wow.
And so when I realized that, I mean, I had to, make plans, and try to behave as normally as possible without upsetting my daughter and without, alerting the school to my decision. And we fled back to Texas.
So, wow, this is so fascinating. Wow, I have chills. I'm not kidding because that thing where they start to call kids by their preferred name at school, you didn't know they were calling her by the other
No,
name? They never
no,
told you.
no. And when
I'm
she
shocked.
she used a boy's name, and
Yeah.
then in the next sentence used her real name.
Wow. So this is just, I'm like, my head spins. It's not obviously the first time I've heard these stories, but every time I hear it, it's just unbelievable to me that they get away with overriding parental rights
Right.
I mean, I'm a parent too, by the way. I have a 10-year-old son, and so I just, I'm very vigilant like you, and I watch and I go to the school. I want to know what's happening. I ask them, are you teaching this kind of stuff, because I will opt my son out of it. I'm not into it. And I live in Los Angeles, so it's a little bit crazy here in California.
Well, this was in Nevada. I mean, this was in Nevada. So
I didn't
I
know.
yeah. I mean, in California, California has some of the worst of it because that was the reason why I decided to speak out in the first place, because of some of the things that had been happening in California. Children being taken away from their parents because their parents weren't affirming, and that was considered unsafe.
Can you even are we having this actual conversation?
It
I mean,
is it is surreal.
it is so insanely, and here I'm a transsexual, don't forget, people. Don't forget, I transitioned. I mean, it's, like, what is happening? This is it's just mind-blowing for me, and it's so sad and scary that we're putting parents in this position. So now how did you get your kid out of there?
Well, like I said, I devised an escape plan, and I had to solicit the help of my extended family because I had nowhere to go.
Oh my god.
And I didn't have any money saved. I didn't even have a car. I didn't have anything. And we left almost everything we had. We just left it. So I, went in my one of my relatives had a townhouse that wasn't finished. There was plywood on the floor, and there were holes in the walls and ceiling,
Mhm,
and it needed a lot of work.
mhm.
But I told her that I would, I asked if I could stay there, and she said yes. So I was able to stay there and do some of the repairs on the house and oversee some of the repairs on the house in exchange for us to be able to stay there.
My gosh, you had that. So you basically just picked up and ran. And so what about your daughter? Was she mad, or was it easy? Was she going along with you?
Yeah, no, it was not easy. It was not easy. And that was when I realized that I had to create some sort of program for her because she was experiencing something very similar to, well, addiction. There is no other word that I could use to describe it. Social media addiction, addiction to devices or
Mhm.
video games. It was something that I'd recognized because living in Las Vegas, you see gamblers all the time,
That's right.
and it was very similar to a poker addiction. And just seeing her behavior whenever she was getting ready to do a TikTok, or whenever she had some event that she wanted to go to at school, those kinds of things, and the behaviors after, you
Mhm.
know the the withdrawals whenever she couldn't participate, just
Wow.
a lot of those kinds of things, were it was just like a gambling addiction. And so I researched different people who had escaped cults. So I researched the Warren
Smart.
Jeffs. I researched the Warren Jeffs cult, and I researched. I really paid attention to Megan Phelps because I remembered her family and the Woods, I think Woodsboro Baptist Church,
Yeah.
all of those kinds of um, all of those kinds of people who were captured and who were public about their position and their beliefs. That it did really remind me of some of the things that I was hearing coming from gender ideology. And so I tried to make parallels where I could, and use some of the same tactics, especially specifically from the Warren Jeffs cult, watching how the 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 children who had escaped, well, I can't say children, they were adults, but the
Yeah.
children of Warren Jeffs and his acolytes had escaped, and how they would talk to the other women to get them to leave as well. And a lot of the times it was women and not men, because the men would be kicked out of the compound, but the women would not be allowed to leave. Excuse me. And so I really paid attention to how they did that, and I really studied it. And of course there was some trial and error, and good old fashioned maternal instinct that helped me create a program that was successful in helping my daughter first to to get out of the addicted mind, and then
Mm, mm,
second, get her to trust me again, because the cult tells them
right.
that you can't trust the parents,
That's right.
and then to affirm reality. So, through a series of phases and steps, I went through them slowly and painstakingly and with some great deal of resistance.
Hmm.
But I had solicited the help of my extended family as well. So I had a support system for myself and for her.
Hmm.
And ultimately, once we got out of all of it, we both got therapy separately, so that we could really understand and process what had happened and how it all got started. With a lot of people, there are some cohorts and comorbidities, but most of the time it's just normal teenage problems that usually just you grow out of.
Hmm.
But in some instances there are other contributing factors.
So you're saying that sort of like any kid could get sucked into that. They don't necessarily need to have something specific to get sort of sucked into this ideology.
Do you think that 20 to 50% of the urban kids in America are all suffering from some sort of
Yeah.
psychosis? No. Anyone's children, anybody's child. I even have counseled Christian homeschooling families because their children were identifying as non binary or trans. Um,
But
it's not, it,
they're being
yes,
homeschooled. It's
that's
gotten
right.
oh my God, I swear I feel like I'm in some kind of crazy movie. Like this is
It is
not
a
real.
crazy, it is crazy.
I mean, I'm laughing, so I don't cry because I want to cry every time I hear these stories. I just feel so. I mean, wow, you're so awesome. You're such an awesome mom. You are just amazing. You are. I have to just say that before we move on. I mean, you're
Thank you.
truly a true, real, parent who cares about their children. And so God, that must have been so how long did it take after you got your kid out of the school and she was probably like so mad at you because you took her away from everything that
Yes, she
she
was.
yeah. Wow. So how long do you think, do you think it took to sort of deprogram her?
about 6 months for her to fully desist.
Oh my
But I mean, I started seeing a difference in her after about 2 weeks.
God.
Um,
Mhm.
the one of the things that, if you've ever been to recovery, there are some
Man.
things that you automatically know that you have to do, which is, if you are suffering from some sort of addiction, you have to replace the cravings and the urges with
That's right.
something
That's right.
less harmful.
Mhm.
And so I chose food.
Right
we
on.
we chose we chose junk food. So we spent a good the better part of 6 weeks. I mean, no, the better part of 2 weeks, probably 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks. Um, um, not really, well, actively
Yeah.
eating meals that we were fun,
Yeah.
and
Right. Right.
usually bad for us.
Yeah,
And there
but
was,
that's sorry to cut you off. That's
you know,
actually very smart. I had 30 years of sobriety, and when I got
yeah,
sober, I had to go to an actual real rehab. Oh, I
yeah,
was a mess, let me tell you. That's all. But that being said, that's what they do. They give you all kinds of crap food and
yes,
just no caffeine, but you can have all kinds
right.
of junk. So no, they
Right.
do. They
I mean,
replace
I
the
did
alcohol.
let her have caffeine. I did let her have
That's all
caffeine.
right. That's all right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I just noticed that so much
Yeah.
she was just so much more focused and less irritable when she had
Yeah.
a little bit of coffee or
Me.
something. Yeah.
Totally.
So, call me a bad mom, but,
Yeah.
I'd rather my teenager have a cup of coffee in the morning than to be a grumpy booty all day.
And also, there's nothing wrong with coffee. It's better than
Mm,
soda, first off.
yeah,
So I don't understand this idea that coffee's bad for kids. No, it's in other countries, by the way. Kids start
they
drinking
do drink,
coffee
yes.
at an early age. But
Yeah.
anyway, it doesn't matter because the other stuff was 100 times worse than you
Right.
gave her coffee. So wow,
Eventually, we weaned her off. I mean, eventually, we got on a better diet. Like,
sure.
like I said, there's phases and steps where I had to pay attention to her behavior
Hmm.
and her moods,
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
just everything about her cycles, all of that stuff. Just
Okay.
paying attention to everything,
Right.
so that I could see when to move on to the next phase or the next step.
Wow. I mean, you are amazing. You really are. You've really figured it out on some level,
Mm,
right? So let's move now to you have a program. You created a
yes,
program.
yes.
Can
It's
you
called
talk about it?
affirming. Yes, affirmingreality.com. So, with everything that I've learned, after I started talking to some of the other mothers who had been through it, our stories were almost identical.
Wow.
And the prescription for it was very similar. Lots of other mothers, even if they did it on a more instinctual level, and they didn't necessarily create a step-by-step guide, they still did a lot of the same things that I did. First and foremost, you got to get that cell phone out of their hands, um, and get get them focused on something more important, something bigger than themselves. And I'm an atheist, but my family is Christian.
Mhm,
Most of them. I do have some Muslim family,
mhm,
but I did have to concede that taking my daughter to church, just so that she could see that you can be a good person
that's
and
right,
be a moral person and still have fun in your life.
right.
Um, so there were some aspects of our lives that we just had to step out of our comfort zone
Mhm,
and and go into other things. That was another thing that the other mothers had in common was they all took their kids to church, even the ones that didn't necessarily believe in any kind of
Yep.
deity.
Yep.
They still decided to do that for the same reason that I did,
Yep.
to put the children in an environment with a more realistic
Hmm.
um, friend group, with some was involved with some friends that were more um, that were had better moral centers.
Well, I'm not religious either, but I when you're getting sober, the AA book is all about God or whatever religion. Yeah, I
Right.
pushed against that from there, but they told me no, 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 no. You can't look at it like a Christian or whatever. You have to look at it more like a higher
Right.
power, and and then
Yes.
so I do believe, and I don't necessarily think going to church is a bad thing because again, it's a community, right? And again,
Mhm.
it's teaching you a specific kind of moral spaces.
Right.
And there's a lot of great things about anything. Doesn't matter a temple or church or whatever. Any kind of that type of gathering. Most of the time, the messages are positive.
Right.
And yeah, and so getting her also around a group of people that have positive energy and
Yes.
positive messages coming out of that, I think is really really important. So now she's in church, and is she meeting other people there?
Well, yes, that's what I was going to say. It wasn't necessarily just for the messaging
Hmm.
or the uplifting vibe, or how whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
but it was really more so that she could interact with people that weren't over sexualized,
Right.
that didn't feel like misbehaving was the only way to have fun.
Right.
Um, because the excitement and the rush that you get from breaking rules or rebelling, all of those things,
Yeah.
it's it is so it's so rampant in schools. They even actively teach the children to be activists, which
What?
naturally makes them, yes, which naturally makes them have to rebel.
Well, that's what
Um,
activism is.
yes, it's an act of rebellion.
That's right.
So so teaching that sort of thing um, at school, it creates real friction between the parent-child relationship. So I wanted my daughter to see that you can have a good relationship with your parents, and
Right.
you can be an obedient child, and not even necessarily obedient per
Mhm.
se,
Mhm.
but you can be a well-behaving child without um, with and still have fun, and
Yeah.
still live a good life, and still have purpose, um, which was something that the schools teach you that you can't do unless you are socially conscious.
Wow, this is so like everyone's gonna watch this and be blown away because I don't think a lot of people. I'm not kidding because I don't even know that's a situation. I mean, I know they're teaching weird stuff. We see it on the, we see it. We're being shown that
Well,
stuff.
those are the tenets of the CRT. Those are the things that are in the
Oh,
CRT praxis. They teach not only to be socially conscious, but they teach the children to be social justice warriors. They teach the children to be anti-racist, and by extension, all inclusive. And a lot of the times that means that if they don't have some sort of oppressed identity, then they are not part of the club.
that's the missing link for me. You just did the missing link for me because I was like, what? Why do these kids, and a lot of them coming from pretty middle class area, are they not?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And the majority being white, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. So they're they're not struggling. I mean, you both know that.
Good portion of a good
Just
portion of them are not
no.
struggling.
I mean, regular I mean, some kids could have comorbidities or, have some other things going on there for sure that don't necessarily relate to,
Well, it
social.
depends on what I mean, because not all of it is equal, right? So just
Right.
like
Right.
so like with what I'm seeing, and I've had to turn people down for my services because their children were suffering from cohorts and comorbidities that were beyond my skill set.
Okay.
This was something beyond a
Yeah.
parenting problem and into a psychological issue and a mental
Right.
health problem.
Right.
So but there are others in my area of expertise, I will say
Okay.
that is where the children are what I call transgendering. They're
Yeah.
not, they're not, they're just trying to fit in.
That's
They're just trying very hard to not turn into Karens, because
right.
if you're
Oh my g I mean, wow, this is just so it's South Park, it's literally South Park.
I
What?
mean, but it's not I mean, I haven't seen an episode of South Park, but I've seen enough memes to know that they're right a lot of the time.
Yeah,
So so a lot of these young girls are, middle class, middle
mhm,
to upper class, um,
yeah,
not necessarily white, but there's a good portion of them that are white. Their families are liberal.
that's right.
A lot of the families are liberal, and I'm not going to say all, but I will say a great deal of them.
Mhm, mhm,
And and they're they're they go to school and they're told that they're privileged unless they have some sort of identity intersecting that will put them in an oppressed category. And these girls want anything they want the worst thing in the world that they can think of is growing up and becoming their mother or becoming some Karen, and so they want to thwart that by identifying as, and there's always a process, the identification as a bisexual, and and then lesbian, and then non-binary, and
mhm.
then trans. There's an ascension that happens. So, and this has been almost uniform for most of the families that I've spoken with. The boys, it is a little bit different.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I most definitely, as I think we see more young girls taking
Right, it's
this
more
on.
young girls.
Yeah,
Well, because girls have body image issues, what they're referring to as gender dysphoria, is just plain old good old-fashioned body dysmorphia
that's right.
that will usually be resolved through puberty, but because of the state of our world, we're, listening to people talk about, excuse me, how hard it is to be a woman, and how terrible it is to be a woman.
Wow,
um, and we don't hear enough about how wonderful it is to be a woman.
that's right.
um, and it is scary, and the overt sexualization of women, and the young girls see this, and they
Right.
see their bodies start to change, and they're like, I don't want to have any part of that. I don't want to have to show my body when I become an adult.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have big boobs. I don't want to engage in this. And um and that, those kinds of things do cause them to say, I just don't want to be a girl.
Wow. I mean, it's so I mean, we were tomboys. That's what we
Right.
were. What
Mm.
happened? Why is that such a bad well, I think now trans became tomboys, or tomboys became trans on some level, but so insanely, like, different.
Yes. So anybody who is gender non-conforming. So if you got the little femboys, that, like to spend all their time cooking,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
or like to do, like love doing hair, you know
Yep.
what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like to sew.
All of a sudden they're trans. Same
All of a
with
sudden
girls.
they're trans, the
Yeah.
same as girls.
It
Yes.
because the problem that I saw way back before any of this, I was watching, stupid me. I was standing back. I should have interjected, but I just thought it was going to be just a small thing. I did not
We
in
all
any,
did.
yeah, I did not think we were going to be in this position we are in today. And I feel a little guilty that I didn't step up sooner. But that being said, I saw things that I'm like, what? You don't have to have gender dysphoria to be trans? And
Yeah.
what? Trans is an identity? What? It's a medical condition, and you get a diagnosis, and you like go through a whole. I'm like, what? That was the first red flag for me, and now look.
It's gotten really out of control. And I mean, I have my own ideas about what it means to be trans. And I'm not anti-trans by any stretch
Yeah,
of the
no,
imagination,
you're not.
but I am very much anti-lie and anti-indoctrination.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm anti-woke. I
Aren't we all at this
yeah,
point?
I don't want, if my daughter, if I thought that it were possible for my daughter to be trans,
Mhm.
then that's what it would be.
That's right.
I don't necessarily believe that anyone is born in the wrong body.
No.
I don't believe that. But I do think that, well, for one thing, I know that there are some people who they just want to change you know what I mean?
It's true.
Like some of my followers are transsexuals who just wanted to do it because they wanted to.
I don't align with that, but by the way, and
Yeah,
also I want you to know that it doesn't make me feel different about you as a person if you have
right.
those feelings, because I did
Yes.
this because I needed to do it, and I never did it
Yes.
because other people wanted me or whatever. That being said, but I never, that born in the wrong body, that's been around in the transsexual community for many years, like 30 years. People were saying it 30, 40 years ago, you know what I
Right.
mean? And it sort of just stuck with that place, which was
Right.
very small. Remember that. It was nobody
Right.
transitioned up to 10 years ago. Nobody was transitioning that much, not
Right.
nowhere near what you see
And
today.
let me
Yeah,
clarify, because I I do think that there are some people where this is the only option
that's
that
right.
they can, to for whatever. But I think that that should be a choice
That's right.
as an adult, and not just, you know what I'm saying? Like
Of
that should be a
course.
choice as an
Yeah.
adult. But I do one of my transsexual followers, he's an old transsexual from the 80s, and he's
Awesome.
just like, we just wanted to. that was just his words, you
It's
know.
so
Um,
funny.
yeah, he was just like, I just wanted to. I just wanted to be a woman. There was no underlying, and when the doctors told me I had to go through all of this stuff, I went to Thailand and so
Yeah.
he didn't even,
Interesting.
there was no diagnosis. There was none
Yeah.
of that. This was
That's
just
weird.
something that he wanted to do.
I
Um,
don't understand that.
yeah,
Whatever. Go for it. You're an adult.
I actually understand that better. Because
Wow.
I do.
Yeah.
I understand that
Okay. That's
better.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that better because we have
Cool.
vices, right? We have we have things that we want for our lives.
Sure.
And
Sure.
they may not be the best thing for us, and it may not even be right for society, and it may not
That's
even
right.
be the right thing at all, but we
That's
still
right.
want them anyway.
And
I
honestly, I
would
don't
love
care.
to eat chocolate cake every day.
Right on. But also for that person, if that's what they needed to do and they're adult and they make that choice, who cares, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, who cares? We're not here for adults.
Yeah.
They have to. But that being said, I think some of the adults need to be held responsible for what is happening today, because this would not be happening if it was not for adults. This isn't just kids. That is
No,
not.
it's not.
There are
No.
adults at play here who are actually on some level indoctrinating and creating this space for these children.
and they're indoctrinating and indoctrinated. So I
Mm,
find
mm,
lawyers for detransitioners as well.
mm.
And I have none of the people that I have referred to lawyers, none of them were transitioned as children. They were all transitioned as adults.
Yeah, that's right.
Two were transitioned. They were transitioned in the wake of a midlife crisis.
Wow.
I mean, these are married men, and it could
Yeah.
have ruined their families had they not had the the understanding in society changed.
Mhm.
And I think, one of them has been he's detransitioning after 10 years. He's in his 50s, and he
What?
started transitioning in his early 40s, and now he's in his mid 50s, and he's detransitioning because he always thought that this was going to make him better, because that's what the therapist told him.
That's right.
If you're suffering from some severe psychological problems, or a situation in your life, PTSD,
Mhm,
any of those kinds of things,
mhm.
um, then why in the world would they tell you that your choice should be to transition?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of them also were suffering from sexual dysfunction,
Mm,
and sex
interesting.
addictions that they didn't know how to process.
Sure.
Um, and we see that with the young men having addictions to pornography.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
I think that there's a lot that goes into the trans identity as it is now, that
Mhm,
is 1,000 times more complicated than it had been 20 years ago.
mhm,
And so I mean, I think about some of the people like my friend Abel
mhm,
Garcia, or
mhm,
Richie.
mhm.
Those young men, they were not children when they transitioned.
True.
Richie was 30,
Wow.
so they were taken advantage of even as adults. They
Mhm.
were they were lied to and manipulated even as adults. So I think
Wow.
that there does need to be a reckoning with the medical community.
Oh, that hands down, friend. I mean, they're just writing letters now. They're just
Right.
writing letters. Like,
Yes.
isn't that fraud? Isn't that
Yes.
illegal?
Malpractice.
Malpractice
It
is,
should
yeah.
be malpractice.
I mean,
Yes.
my God, I had to work 2 years. Not that I'm being, well, I had to work 2 years of hardcore therapy to get that letter. I'm like,
Yes.
what? You're getting a letter for $150? We'll just write the letter. I'm like, you are
Right.
all going down. You are all going down. That is, all of them need to lose their license. They know what
One
they're
of
doing.
one of the people that I found a lawyer for, he got he got a prescription for wrong sex hormones on his first visit
Oh
2
God,
weeks before he was moving out of the country permanently.
what?
No plan, no plan,
Insane.
no care plan whatsoever.
Oh no, they don't. That's not. Oh God, man! If I could show you what I did, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, right? I don't want people out there going, "Well, just because you did it like that, Buck." But take this into consideration, my friend. I've never looked back. 30 years, and everybody
Because,
knows
I mean, there is a standard of care that should be rigorous
that's
for
right.
something like this. It should be rigorous
That's the
because
reason I never look back. It's the
right,
reason I'm solid. It's the reason why
because
I
you
know
really
what
know
I
for
did and I
sure.
made a
Yes,
solid choice. Even though, remember 30 years ago, we didn't have Instagram and Twitter and
right,
I had nothing. There wasn't even the internet. There wasn't
right,
even cell phones. I'm totally dating myself. But no, no, for reals. I couldn't go on there and see like, oh, I want to be this or I was
right.
flying by the seat of my pants. Let me tell you, friend. And I had no idea how I was gonna look, how I was gonna feel, all of it. It was so insane. But anyway, that being said, that's why structure is so important and something so life changing as this. And they are just flinging letters, no therapy, just go ahead. Like anyone can be trans, top surgeries for 13-year-olds. I, I'm speechless. And it's, it's so sick
It is
that
sick.
we would do this to young people, and we're
Well, there's
lying.
good news, though. There's good news.
Okay, let's move
In
forward to
the
the good news because I get so upset. I'm sorry. I just get upset because I only want the best for people. And, I'm not anti trans, clearly, but I'm anti bull crap for
Right.
kids. And I'm anti lying. You're lying to a child when you tell them they can change their sex.
Yes.
You are
Yes.
lying. That's not
Right.
true.
That's right.
I'm still
Um,
a biological female. So anyway,
right.
go on, my friend. Tell us.
There is good news. In the whole of the southeastern United States, gender affirming care
Ah,
has been banned.
that's right.
Um, in every state from Texas to Florida, it has been banned in some form or fashion. And they're working on legislation throughout the country to make sure, well, for minors, gender affirming care for
Right.
minors
Right.
is banned.
Right.
Um, and there are debates about what age should be appropriate to make those decisions.
Yeah.
And everybody has an opinion about it, as do I.
Mhm.
But because I find lawyers for detransitioners, a lot of what I see is not just the age at which they transition, but the the ease in which they are allowed to transition with no real oversight and no real plan, no real care plan.
That's right.
So I mean, in a lot of ways, the children were getting better care in that respect, because they still had to go through a year of therapy and
Mhm.
living as and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. But a lot of the adults, they weren't given that.
That's
They
true.
weren't given any kind of guidance in this area.
Okay.
And I think that if we're going to allow transition as as a medical procedure for people, then there should be some serious regulations attached to it.
I'm totally on board with you.
Yeah.
100%. There's no way you could just, I talk to a lot of detransitioners as well because it
Mhm.
breaks my heart. Can you imagine it worked out for me? I have an amazing, beautiful life. And I see these young people doing something they should never be doing. And then the community just ostracizing them as if they're, like coming after us. I'm like, they're telling us what we're doing is wrong, people. Wake up.
Right. Right.
Why are you mad at the messenger? Like the messenger's literally telling you they ruin their lives, these kids. I cannot do those interviews without crying because it's just shocking, the stuff. So you're right. These kids were 18, right? Some of them 16, just given the hormones and told them to go to YouTube. They told them
Right.
to go to YouTube to figure out how to inject the testosterone.
Right.
I'm like, wait a that is so incredibly dangerous.
Yes. I mean, like, if you have any other kind of medical condition that requires injections, there's all kinds of tutorials and things that you have
That's
to I
right.
mean, diabetes, you have to have injections, and they teach you how to do that in the
That's
office.
right. That's right.
And they go over it and over it and over. I mean,
Yep.
so the level of neglect that a lot of people
Yes.
who end up medicalizing experience, it should be criminal. Um,
It has to be. What
yes,
what are we doing? We have standards, like you just said. We have standards for all other things. There is no other disorder, and this is a disorder, whether anybody wants to argue with me or not. I have a mental disorder called gender dysphoria. And that being said, there is no other disorder that you can self-ID and then be on
right.
medication. And there's none. There,
That's right.
there,
I can't self ID and say, I have beautiful woman disease, and you just have to shower me with gifts. I mean, that's not,
brilliant.
I wish it were like that. I have
Excellent.
perfect eyelashes and a big butt. So you have to shower me. No,
Awesome.
that's not how it goes.
No, it's
Yeah.
not, people. We need to wake up. You're here because you care, friend, and you've done such beautiful work and you're continuing to do this work. I mean, you are in the trenches, friend. Your actual daughter got sucked in. So how is she today? How is she?
She is a typical annoying teenage girl.
You did it.
Yes, I was successful.
You
I think.
totally are.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to that. My 10-year-old, I'm like, I don't want to go there.
Well, actually, I have 4 sons, and all 4 of my sons were easier than my single daughter, so,
Interesting. I think that's true.
yeah.
Honestly, I'm thinking about adopting a kid, and I was looking at a girl, and I'm like, "Ugh, I don't really know if I want to go there. Yeah, I think it's harder. I think it's
Yes.
harder to be a girl on some level than a
Well,
boy.
I mean, that's some of what I tell parents, especially the mothers, you
Yeah.
know, get, sometimes there's if it's an intact nuclear family,
Mhm,
then I will tell them, okay, dad, you have your dad time,
mhm.
and mom, when you have your mom time,
Yeah.
and I give them things to do for each parent.
Oh,
And so
great.
with the moms, I tell them, okay, mom, this is your time to not necessarily be a mom
Mm,
all the time. Don't be a disciplinarian. Let dad do that. What now we want to focus on, show your daughter how wonderful it is to be a woman.
wow.
Laugh loudly and have fun, and let her see you doing it. But while you're doing it, talk to your daughter about mother-daughter relationships.
Mm,
Talk to your daughter about the experiences that you have or had as a young girl, in your 20s, in your 30s. Give her some of those cautionary tales that are probably embarrassing. You don't want her to know, but
yeah.
you really do need to tell her, because that way she can see how maybe her life is aligning in some of these ways, so that she can have the experience. She can have your wisdom instead of having your experience.
Wow.
So, those are the things that I try to encourage parents to see with their own children. That's something that we used to do as a
Mm,
people. We used to tell the tale, right?
yeah.
Campfire stories and all that whole stuff, or girls, um, you know, going out and hanging the laundry with their mothers, and
Yeah.
their mothers giving them their wisdom. We don't do that anymore because we let our televisions and our
So true.
educators parent our children, and we really should be doing it for ourselves.
Wow, that's very powerful what you just said. I do think the social media, television, video games, all of it has interfered with humanity, and
Yes,
it's taken away a lot of our humanity and taken away this idea that you just have to be looking, you have to be famous. I think that's
right.
what kids are seeing, right?
Yes,
I have to be
yes,
famous,
yes, that too.
and it's
You know,
dangerous.
that too, I think, and I think that, I mean, because you can be famous for doing silly stuff. You don't have to be
Sure.
famous for being overtly sexual. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that there is some sort of glorification in that there doesn't need to be. And we can also, teach our children. I mean, I make a bunch of silly videos about the armadillo living under my house. Um, and they've gotten a lot of attention. Um, and it doesn't, there's nothing at all to do with anything inappropriate. It's very
That's right.
wholesome.
Yeah.
Me being mad at the armadillo living under my house. Um,
Great.
so I do encourage parents to teach their children, if once their children get um, to a certain point,
Mm,
then educate them on social media,
mm,
and educate them on the appropriate way to interact with technology and with your
right.
devices, and encourage them to make wholesome, funny things that don't have anything to do with negative,
Yeah.
and really self-deprecation,
Mhm.
or self-harm, or any kind of insecurity or anything
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
You don't need that in order to, or exploit themselves. You don't need that in order to um, have a good time, and you don't need that in
Right.
order to get attention.
Wow, it's so amazing what you're saying. Like, so many parents are gonna just be so grateful to you because I think they're lost. Honestly, I think people they don't know what to do when they see their kids come home and say, "I'm trans," and then they're all angry at their parents, right? And being so they're being taught to be mean. These kids are being
Yes.
taught to be
Yes.
aggressive. I mean, they come after me, and I'm like, "Hold up here, kiddo. I'm your elder. Are you insane? Like, you can't talk to me like calling me." I mean, I'm just shocked. That's how I know it's not about community. They're
No.
I feel like they're building an army or they're building
Yes.
something. They're using the kids
Yes.
to do something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. I mean, it's you the detachment that is encouraged, and the disembodiment that's encouraged
Yeah.
is really it's really like a rape of the mind of a child. Like
Mhm.
you're the safeguarding that has been eroded and the boundaries that
That's
are
right.
broken down in order to, in order to groom these children into believing that their parents don't love them, their parents are not safe, and that their body isn't real.
Wow.
It is it I mean, and you see this happen because so many of these children end up engaging in some very, very toxic behaviors
Yeah.
in order to be able to make a living or pay for some of these surgeries. And it is sad to see an 18-year-old that
Uh,
you watched as a 10-year-old
yeah.
be, and then you see them on OnlyFans, and it's
Oh,
just like, what? You know,
I know. I
there's
know.
no,
It's
the
not.
sex industry is one a whole other thing.
That's a whole. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
But the thing is that, this is somebody who by all other accounts should have had a bright future as an engineer or a
That's
doctor
right. That's
or
right.
yes.
That's right. I work in the sex industry, so I will tell you that I started in my late 30s, 40s. Come on, like that's a whole other. I do not think 18-year-olds
Right.
should. And also, it's different now.
Yes.
They didn't have all of that stuff back when I did it. It was very regular. It was just a thing. You couldn't go on the internet
Right.
and post like all this stuff, and
Right.
it's too accessible. Anybody can create an OnlyFans account. Anyone can put their naked body on. That's why there's. It's just like I actually got teary eyed when you were saying that because it is. It's not okay that these
Yeah.
kids are being sexualized and told that this stuff is because there is no future in that. I don't care what
No,
anybody says. There's
no.
no future. It's quick money, it's whatever it is that is, but it's not a future. There's no
I mean,
such
I
thing.
lived in Vegas. I live
You
in
know,
Vegas for
it,
15 years. You know, I
18 year
mean,
olds can't make that choice. They
yeah,
can't. They
no,
don't know what they're doing. And that stuff doesn't go away.
yes,
It'll be on the internet forever.
yes.
A- And
But
at
it's not
18,
just that. It's not just that. There is something that happens to you
yes, thank you.
permanently when you're
That's true.
when you're that young.
That's true.
It took me a very long time to come to grips with some of the things that happened,
Yeah.
that I did, some of the choices that I made as
Yeah.
a young woman. Um, I cannot even imagine what my life would be like if I had to deal with this on top of all of those other things.
That's
And
right.
and this actually makes the wrong choices necessary in that they're being taught that this is the way to do it because it's not your real body.
Oh my
It's not your
God.
body. Your
Oh,
body is male. So you
oh
can
my
do
God.
these things. And you when you transition, you can forget all about that because that was never your body. I mean, this is the kind of thing that, that a lot of young people are being told. Um,
Unbelievable.
and I talk about that with parents too. And,
Okay.
I talk about that with parents too. I talk about how they manipulate the language in order to confuse the children and to thwart any attempt that you have to stop it from happening to your children. So I call it parallel language messaging. It's like anytime there's gaslighting, word cyclones, word salads, all of the logical fallacies, rebranding and redefining of words, all of those things fall under parallel language messaging. And you need to understand how to use it. You need to understand how to recognize it. You need to understand how to speak it, because when you're trying to help your child desist, they will use that against you, and you have to know how to fight it back.
Oh my God, we're in a cult.
It is a cult.
Thank
It is
you.
a cult. I know it
It's a
is.
cult. There's just no way around it. It's a cult. I
Yes.
dated a woman who was in a cult, and wow, ooh, the damage. It's there. You see it. Raised since she was a little baby, all the and like got
Yes.
out of it, but you can see it, and I can actually just put it on top. So Gabs, you're awesome. You're a
Thank you.
beautiful human. You're also a beautiful woman. You're a beautiful
you.
human being. And I think that the universe loves you a lot, and you're doing the work, and you will save many children. And I just want to tell you that I think you're just incredible. And I feel so happy to be in some level friends with you and to have you in this space because we need you. So say your website again, can you?
It's affirmingreality.com.
For me. Now I know where to send the parents. Do you know how many
Yes,
parents I
please.
get? I
Yes,
get
please do.
I get so many parents. I'm like, where do I send them? I've been sending them to GenSpec, but that's not really. I'm going to send them directly to you. I'll
Jen
put.
Speck got in touch with me the other day so that they could find out.
Oh my God! See that's the collaboration, friends. We care. Everybody out there who's listening to this, we care about you. We care about the kids. This is not anti-trans. This is we
Yes.
want you to be happy. And if you're going to be put in the wrong space, you're going to ruin your whole life. And this woman just is putting herself out there to help you kids get into a better space, because this whole
And it does need to be kids. Like, I mean, I do get a lot of questions about from parents whose children are already adults. And I don't there's a different
Yeah.
method that you have to use for adults. So my program is primarily for middle school and high school,
Right.
early on, anywhere from, I would say, 11
Okay.
to 17 or 18. I have never had an 18-year-old, but I have had some parents that have contacted me and said, "We don't care. Please just help us."
I can.
So,
Oh
yeah,
God. Oh
yeah.
my God. It's just profound. When I sit on the phone with these parents sometimes and just they're crying and they're so lost and they have nowhere to go. But you
Oh,
are
please
you
send
are
them to me.
so amazing. So I'm gonna put all your information below, and everyone's gonna who they need. Please send anybody to her and support her website and support her work. And this is how we're gonna make a huge amount of change for the positive. And I thank everybody for joining us today. And leave great comments because that always helps us. And get in touch with Gabs if you need to do that. And also pump her up, because this is, I'm not kidding, pump her up because this is how we are going to make change, friend. And you changed my day and you made me feel like we are on our way to fixing a huge mess. So bye, everybody. I'll see you on next time. And